Hello learners, today we will be covering MMPC 011, that's Social Processes and Behavioral Issues. Today we will cover two units. One is block 3, that's interpersonal and group processes, and we will talk about and we learn about the job stress, that is unit 10, and block 4, that is emerging trends, unit 11, that is employee empowerment. Let's see what is job stress about. What is job stress? Or what is stress? The word stress is derived from the Latin word that is strictus, which means the tight or maybe a narrow. So whenever we talk about the stress, it comes as a state of mind. It is a state of which is manifested by a syndrome, which consists of all the non-specifically induced changes in our biological system. So these stress can be defined either as a psychological, or it is because of some physical reaction to certain events or any situation happened in our life. These life events are called as stressors. So whenever any event came to our life, either psychological or maybe physiological, that particular situation is called as stressor, and that particular event is termed as stressors to us. So the stressor or a demand can be a person or an event that triggers or stress the response. This physical reaction are stress reactivity. When these physical reactions occur for a longer time, for like a job, and the stress beyond the tolerance limit of the body, that is maybe a negative or a negative physical reaction or consequences, or maybe any psychological consequences that may result to these consequences are called strains. So these stress activity, which is a physical reaction, the consequence of these stress reactivity are the strains. There is a strain which refers to the adverse psychological, physical, behavioral, organizational consequences that may occur as a result of stressful events. For example, a particular event might happen to a stressful to you, but it may be stressful, it may not be, might be stressful to the other person. The stress is subjective. It is not all stress is bad. Sometimes the stress are to boost up the employee's morale or to boost up the employee's productivity. That is called as eustress. That eustress is resulting in positive energy and enhance the performance and health. That is called eustress. EU means something that is proper. Or a positive stress. We experience on experiencing the stresses and a feeling of a challenge or an achievement is a eustress. So this is a difference between the distress and the eustress. The distress occurs when there is too much stress or too much strain in person, which cannot be when a person cannot be cope up, and nothing is done to mitigate its effects. These events creates a harmful effect for a person. For example, the last attempt for a job interview, hence negatively give a stress to an experience when there is an imbalance between the stressors, that is the demands placed on us and our ability to meet those demands. So the eustress is a positive stress, whereas the distress is when a person cannot be able to cope up and cannot be able to mitigate that effects. Too much of arousal or having the little arousal will results in low performance, while a moderate level of arousal will result to the peak performance. So this is there is a optimal arousal or a inverted U theory, where the some stresses are always helpful, and it is known to be as a U theory, and this optimal level of arousal differs from person to person. Some person have a different level of taking that particular stress or particular performance, whereas the other can be taken on a very different level. So there, this diagram is well defined, the U theory or a optimal level of arousal, where it is seen that the anxiety or the stress or maybe any unhappiness happen of a person when it is low. There is a boredom, or maybe when there is low pressure, or when a person is not pressurized and they are relaxing while working. There it creates a arousal of boredom with them, or for example a monotonous work also. Simultaneously, when we see on an extreme part, when the pressure is very high, there also we'll see that there is a high stress or an anxiety or a pressure happens to be within a person. So there is a optimal level of the arousal happens when the pressure is on a very moderate level, and it is seen that that is the area of the best performance, when a person can perform in a best of their manner. Now there is another term which is known as hypostress and hyperstress. Hypostress refers to which indicates the insufficient stress due to lack of stimulation. For example, a person feels monotony in a current job, and since there is no challenging work, so that leads to a hypostress. They are stressed because there is no they don't see the scope of growth within that job, and there is very monotonous work which they are doing on a very regular basis, on a regular terms, within a regular span of time. Then on the other part, on a contradictory, there is hyperstress, which refers to the excessive stress when events happen to be, even the positive events pile up and stretch the limits of person's adaptability. Sometimes this role overload can also cause to hyperstress. Now it depends that how a person, what is the capability of person, or how a person adapt that particular stress in a performance, in a productivity, or maybe overload can be taken to as a high pressure load also. So overall, when we bifurcate the stressors, that is psychological, organizational stressors and societal stressors. So let's see in detail what are the psychological stressors. Psychological stressors are those stressors which are refers to our mental ability, how we can be able to cope up. It refers to the mental adaptability of particular phenomenon. So it was Lazarus and Cohen have gave the 3 general category of psychological stress, which is known as catathymic phenomena, individual crisis and daily hassles. Catathymic phenomena refers to the group of stressors which results from sudden, unique and very powerful single events happen, or a cluster of related events happen and affect the large number of people. For example, the natural disasters. Individual crises are those events it happens to be and challenge the adaptive adaptabilities in the same way as the catalytic phenomena that affects few people, maybe on a very individual level, or maybe any personal event. For example, a death of a dear one can be an individual crisis. Daily hassles refers to those stable and repetitive problems which we encounter in our daily life and typically do not present great adaptive difficulty. So it comes and the hassles comes and we able to cope up with all those hassles in a regular manner, or maybe we interpret that particular nature of work as it is on a repetitive mode and we encounter in our daily life. So the psychological stresses have their own characteristics. their own way of adapting, the people have different way of taking these stressors in a different mental state. When we talk about the organizational stressors, so Dr. Uday Parekh has mentioned 10 organizational stressors. First is IRD, that is inter-role distance, role stagnation, that is RS, role expectation conflict, role erosion, role overload, role isolation, personal adequacy, self-role distance, role ambiguity, and resource inadequacy, that is RIN. Let's understand these major 10 organizational stressors which happen to be at the workplace. Inter-role distance, and the stress happen when there is inter-role distance, when a person have a different role which is not aligned with their own job category. Sometimes the person gets stressed out of that. Role overload refers to when an employee is overloaded with a role which is not a part of their job or part of their work. They get stressed out of that. Role stagnation refers to when the role is stagnant. Then also the employees get stressed out of it. Role expectation conflict happen when an employee doesn't while recruiting, when the role is given to them or the job category is given to them differs from the role assigned to them. So there the conflict happened between the employees. There the conflict happened because that expectation came to them while recruitment process, and there the conflict happened because that particular role was not given to them. Role erosion happen when this stress comes when certain responsibilities or certain along with that certain authorities erode out of their role. Role isolation happen when the role is in an isolated manner, when nobody is recognizing, when an employee is isolated due to that particular role. They are not in sometimes they are not clear about their roles also. Personal inadequacy, when an employee cannot be able to perform as per their role. This happens to be as a PI stress. Self-role distance, when an employee keeps themselves distance, which is the role designated to them. Role ambiguity happens when the role or the job responsibilities are not very clear to them, when it is very unclear job role is given to them. Then also a person happens to be in a stress. Role inadequacy happens to be when the resource inadequacy happens to be when this stress comes to an employee, when the role is not aligned with their own capability and their knowledge. So all these 10 organizational stressors happen to be at the workplace, and it is very well defined as per the role of an employee. So there are certain stress management techniques which are mentioned as self-awareness and learn to recognize the first symptoms of distress in ourselves. So this is very important to understand what is happening and why I am getting stressed, what are the key components of that, why I am, which it may be because of the role. For example, at the workplace, at an organization level, it is because of the role ambiguity, or it is because of the role overload. So here an employee has to be very clear on if it is overloaded, then he or she can be check with their supervisors or the managers about the load of a work which is assigned to them. If they are not able to performance is not up to the mark, or maybe if it is because of the role ambiguity, then it has to be sit with the managers or the supervisor to align the roles with in a proper manner, in a clear manner. It should be focused in preventing and managing stress at an individual and organizational levels. So there are certain personal strategies also which helps to prevent and manage the stress. First and foremost is work-life balance. Balancing the act will act on physical and psychological well-being and will help to cope up with the demands, the challenges and various stressors at personal level and at workplace. This is very important at an organization level because it is seen that most of the people cannot be able to balance their work life because of the role overloading, or maybe because of the role isolation, or also sometimes because of the role ambiguities. So this needs to be work it out, and nowadays most of the organizations are really working and strategizing the work-life balance at their workplaces. Second is time management. Time management again is very important because it is the most significant strategy to prevent the stress. One should manage time effectively, thereby setting priorities and accomplishing goals and commitments. So there are certain strategies to cope up with the time management, how to prioritize the thing. There are time sheets, there are journaling, there are to-do lists. So there are a lot of time management strategies which can be able to manage the stress if it is happening because of the time crunching. Then there is certain coping skills. Coping skills refers to how to deal with a conflict, how to deal with a because at the organization level it is very normal and it is very natural to get into the conflict. But there are some people really get stressed out of it if something happens at the workplace. So one should try to improve the coping skills by focusing what the person can change and control instead of focusing what one cannot change. So this makes a clear to an employee how to deal with the conflicts happening at the workplaces. Then there is another very important strategy is social support. It is one of the mediating factors of how people cope up with the stress. Social support act as a buffer to many types of stressors, especially at the workplace. We can see at the workplaces that there are friends group or subgroups within the main formal setups that creates a positive humor or positivity among all the people or the employees around them. They laugh, they enjoy, there are positive humors at the workplace which happens to create the positive emotions among the employees. It lowers the stress, it enhances the productivity. So social support system at workplace provides a very important role. It plays a very important role in emotional well-being, the information, the feedback, even the support and mentoring helps to be as a social support. For example, if an employee is always stressed out at workplace and cannot be able to enjoy the work, it is not possible that particular employee to be productive at a workplace. So it needs to be very important that along with a well-balanced life, work-life life, along with the time strategies, they need to be get along with the people around them so that they can be create a positive and emotional well-being among the employees at the workplace. The other strategy on a very personal note is positive mindset and resilience. How we respond to the potential stressful situations depends on the mindset of a person is having. A positive attitude alters our subjective experiences of stress when it occurs. Positive thinking can be learned over time. Negative thinking or the pessimistic person is found to be related to depression. So physical problems happen, there are a lot of psychological issues or the physiological issues also happen. It also leads to the low level of achievement. So positive mindset to create emotional well-being is very important, and it has to be very clear on everybody's attitude that there are lot of things happen which is out of their control. So they need to cope up, they need to know what are those self-aware about that, so that they can create the positive mindset for their own, for the better productivity. Then there is another strategy which is a very personal strategy. It is a leisure time activities. Such activities should help in reducing the stress. Leisure activities should promote the joy, spontaneity and connectedness with the significant others and the nature. Most of the organizations are using leisure time activity during the office hours, during the working hours, but if it is not there, this is a personal strategy which one can use to prevent the and manage the stress. So this one should be involved in some of the leisure time activities which help them to reduce the stress which is happening due to the organization level. There is another personal strategy to prevent and manage stress is which is given in the positive psychology, which is known as PERMA. PERMA refers to the positive, P refers to the positive emotions, E refers to the engagement, R refers to the relationship, positive relationship, M refers to the meaning, and A refers to the accomplishment. Now let's understand about these terms. Positive emotions refers to the positive mindset, how we really think, how the well-being is going on, what is the work-life balance, how we can be able to cope up with the things. So this relates with the growth mindset. Engagement refers to how we are engaging ourselves into what activities, into what kind of support system we have, what are we, for example, most at the workplaces there are yoga activities and the leisure time activities which helps them, maybe even at the cultural programs are there time to time, and lot of engaging activities happen to be at the workplace to make them engage and connect with each other. Positive relationship happens to be very important to manage the stress, because if there is no positive relationship at the workplace within the employees, it may impact not only the individual performance but an organizational performance on the whole. Meaning of doing something is very important. One has to be very meaningful and very mindful in doing any activity. And finally is accomplishment. Accomplishing the things is very important, because that creates a confidence, that creates the the positive emotion or a well-being within an employees to move further, to do it in a better manner. So overall there are 5 dimensions of positive organizational behavior. That is the learned optimism, self-efficacy, emotional intelligence, subjective well-being and hope. So these learned behaviors are very important. These 5 dimensions are very important to increase the overall, it impacts the organization culture of an organization, which needs to be positive to prevent the and manage the stress at a workplace, at an organization level. Physical exercise is very important. Aerobic exercises are found to be positively correlated, and improvement in the people's responsiveness to the stressful activities, or maybe flexibility training also help. Yoga can also be very helpful in to reduce the mental tension, or maybe also the stretching exercise which it happens to be because of the distress. Diet plays a very important role. Good dietary practices helps in reducing the stress. The food with high sugar content and food with high cholesterol alters the blood chemistry, and hence make any employee, any person at a which is it can be vulnerable to the stress. Professional help. Sometimes people ignore that. Sometimes people cannot be able to identify the systems at the earliest. But once the early detection is done, along with the professional help, it helps to prevent the physical and psychological damage which can be happen because of the stress. So there are a lot of therapies which are available. It can be done with a professional psychologist, or maybe any professional help, or through a counseling, which can be done at a very at a early stage. So it is well said that prevention is better than cure. So there are certain these were the personal strategies, but there are certain organizational strategies also to prevent and manage the stress. The very important is job redesign. At a strategic level, at the organization level, redesigning the job is very important, so that the employees need to take care of, and some sources of the stress are reduced. So here the job decision latitude, where an increase in the worker control will help in reducing stress at organization level. Second is goal setting. This strategy is designed to enhance the task motivation. It helps in focusing the person's attention and help in channelizing the energy into the productive way. So the goal setting can be recommended to done along with the supervisor and the subordinate, so that the goal can be realistic. It should not be only the goal, it should be the SMART goals, which should be the realistic, and it should be decided between the manager and the subordinates, and jointly work towards the productivity. Then there is burnout stress syndromes. Burnout stress syndrome also refers to BOSS. This is a consequence of high level of job stress, personal frustration, and inadequate coping skills have major personal, organization and social cost, and these costs are probably increasing. So burnout syndrome is very well known syndrome at a organization level, where an employees are overloaded with the work, or maybe when they cannot be able to manage their work life balance, or maybe because of any other psychological reason where they are inadequate with the coping skills also. So this BOSS is burnout syndrome is debilitating. It is a psychological condition which actually brought about at an unrelieved work stresses. So the consequences are very to identify these consequences are very important. It is arise from depletion of energy reserves. It lower the resistance to illness. It increase the dissatisfaction and pessimism among the employees, or maybe any person. It increase the absenteeism and inefficiency in work. Honeymoon period cannot be able to go it along with that. Fuel shortage chronic symptoms are there. Crisis and hitting the wall symptoms can be seen. So we'll see further all these stages, because these are the few stages which is seen as a very chronic and the consequences of burnout syndrome. Let's first see the honeymoon stage. In the honeymoon stage, there is euphoric. This is a very euphoric feeling that encounters when a person starts a new job. They are very overwhelmed with their emotions. They are very excited and very enthusiastic and pride, and because they find it very challenging and wanted to be do the best out of this. So this was a stage where firstly the energy resources are gradually depleted in coping with the demands of the challenging environment, and secondly the habits and strategies for coping with stress are formed. and in this stage which are often not useful in coping with later challenges. So there are these are the two dysfunctional features which happened in this particular stage, because this is a very early stage of when a person joins an organization. So because of their enthusiasm or maybe overwhelming about the emotions of that particular new job, they sometimes they cannot be able to cope up with the challenges which comes in front of them. Then there is fuel shortage stage. Fuel shortage stage happens when there is an attempt to deal with job related crisis, and it's seen that some employees overdraws the reserves of adaptation energy. Reserves and release to the late, and the energy reserves are limited. In this stage, there is vague feeling of loss, fatigue and confusion, and the symptoms can be job satisfaction or inefficiency, fatigue, or maybe even the sleep cycles or insomnia is there. It leads to escape the activities such as increased they eat more and more, and within not within the time frame, not as per the schedule. Drinking and smoking is seen. Alcoholism at the workplace due to the stress can be seen because of the fuel shortage stage, where they cannot be deal with whatever job is assigned to them, whatever happens to them, they whatever reserve they have for that particular energy, they overdraw that, or they release that particular energy also, which is already limited with them. So there are a lot of difficulties happened at this stage, which are the signals for the future or the advanced stage of the stresses. Then it comes the chronic symptom stage or the crisis stage. So this fuel shortage stage is the initial stage of the crisis stage, which sometimes cannot be identified, and it leads to the very chronic symptoms. Chronic symptom stage is when the physiological symptoms becomes more happened, which is more demand, which is more pronounced attention, and during this stage. The common symptoms are very chronic in a way of physical illness. It's seen that there are a lot of anger issues which happened to be at the workplace. Depression is one very common chronic symptom which happened to be at the chronic crisis stage. Then later on, the most chronic or maybe the final stage is a crisis stage, when these feelings or the physiological symptoms persist over a period of time, for a longer time. The individual enters a stage of crisis. So he feels oppressed, there is a heightened pessimism, self-doubting is there, tendency of is as ascendant to them. So this is a stage where it is not related only to physique, it comes to the psychological depression also, or maybe when a person really cannot be able to get not only with the coping, but that stage is already gone, they oppressed with that, and this is a height of pessimism where they start feeling that they are of no use. Maybe sometimes the suicidal thoughts also comes in this particular stage. Then there is another phrase which is very common as hitting the wall. This particular phrase is taken from the athletics. It is said that the marathon actually beings at the 20-mile mark with 6 miles to go. So it is at this point that the marathon runner feels that he has to hit the wall. And it is an experience so devastating that it can completely knock a person out. The body temperature shoots up to a very high, from 1060 Fahrenheit to 1070 Fahrenheit, with accompanying that loss of blood volume. So this leads to muscle paralysis when they are in an extreme of their physiological condition, and the consequence can be the dizziness, or they sometimes faint even at the fields when we talk about at the athletes, and even they collapse at the fields. So this similar kind of experience can be seen at a workplace also, where a person is so much stressed, when the person is overloaded with their psychological and the physiological conditions, where they cannot be able to adapt the change, where they cannot be able to cope up, they don't know the strategies to cope up, or maybe they are not going through that coping strategies. They collapsed at the workplace, they faint, because these are the physiological conditions which comes along with the stress conditions, which happens to be not only psychological but also started with the physiological condition. So with all this adaptation, which where the energy deplete, where the energy actually comes to a zero, one may lose control on one's life, or it may actually leads to the result of a professional career, where they really feel that they cannot be able to work, or maybe they get into that kind of physiological condition where they cannot be able to take care or take over their professional career. So this stress is like an electric power. It may take a bulb light up and provide the brilliant illumination. However, if the voltage is high, then when the bulb takes off, it can be burnout of the bulb, and the phenomena of burnout is very harmful effect, and the stress leads to loss of effectiveness on an individual level. So burnout can be defined as a end result of stress experienced, but not properly coped up, which the stress is not properly coped up, that is called as burnout, which results in symptoms of exhaustion, irritation, ineffectiveness, and inaction, inability to do the things, or maybe even discounting, doubting themselves and others. The problems occur because of the health also, hypertension, or maybe the heart issues or the ulcers. These are the few elements which happens to be because of the burnout. Parekh has suggested, Dr. Uday Parekh has suggested the opposite phenomena of glow up. He mentioned, he reported that it occurs, he researched that it occurs when stress is properly channelized. A person is not burnout, it can be glow up. Glow up results a feeling of challenging, they take the stress as a challenge. High job satisfaction, it relates with the creativity. When a person is take the challenging, but before that particular stress has to be properly channeled or properly take up the coping strategies. Then only a person can be able to perform in a better way, in an effective way, in a more creative way, in an innovative way, and also adjust to work life and able to do the work life balance. There is another syndrome which is known as ROSS, that is rust out stress syndrome. Researchers have observed a phenomenon which is the opposite of BOSS, that is burnout syndrome. The rust out syndrome is a stress syndrome, or ROS is indicative of stress underload. Person can be stressed because of overload in case of BOSS, that is burnout. A person can be stressed when there is underload, when there is no work to do, when they are just sitting idle at the workplace and they are not able to show their capabilities. It occurs when there is a gap between what the executive is capable of doing and what is required to do. This concept of role erosion is close to the concept of Ross. So, stress is, if it is underloaded also, it increase due to both aspects of work. It can be qualitative, it can be quantitative. So it has to be situational, there has to be situational appraisals, which is a prerequisite for countering the stress. So managing stress here is very important in two ways, in both the ways, either on an individual level or in what an organization is doing. So there are certain personal strategies and different organizational strategies which we discussed, but let's see what an organization can do and what the organization can do to alleviate the stress. There are certain proactive interventions which can be organization can undertake the stress audit. There should be some scientific input to take care of the stress levels. There has to be check with the the company doctors or counselors should be there, and spreading a message about the stress is very important. Awareness is very important what the organization can do at their own level. So a lot of organizations are working and undertaking a stress audit is a regular or as per the regular audits what they are doing at the organization level. Even at the organization, there are psychologists, and thus they are hiring the psychologists, which are also designated as industrial psychologists or the organization psychologists, who take care of all these workplace issues, and they take the necessary interventions to manage the not even the stress but the other issues also as per the employee performance. Proactive interventions which is used as using the scientific inputs or the stress audit or spreading the message are equally important, because dispersing the information or knowing the people about these particular the kind of stress and what can be the consequences, this is very important, because here they need to know what can be the proper diet, what can be the exercises, how we can be able to cope up with those things. When we talk about the scientific input, there has to be some fundamentals of the stress responses or the validated inputs has to be there. Stress audit, as I said, it is organizations have almost a century now paid due attention to the maintenance and creation, and they are updating the technology because of that. So other organization strategies are job redesign and goal setting, which we discussed before also, because redesigning a job is very important. Whether a person is overloaded or he or she is underloaded, these two extreme conditions can lead to the stress, which not only happens to be a reason for the stress, but also happens to be the unproductive employees also. So goal setting is a very important strategy which has to be designed to enhance a task in a very productive way. Then there are other strategies to overcome stress. Affection is taking a hard look at yourself. Determine why the stress is happening, where the stress originates from, whether it is an individual stress or it is at the organization level, or it is because of the colleagues, peer pressure or anything, that has to be taken in consideration. When it comes to a personal level, one has to be alert on that. Do things often than your job when it gives a sense of meaning and satisfaction. So taking a risk is very important, but growth and productivity results from taking moderate risk is equally important, because various type of activities are there. Too much of risk, if a person cannot be able to adapt it, so it is always recommended not to take the risk. So moderate risk is always recommended. Avoid isolation. Withdrawing from others can also lead to stress or a depression. So always be communicate with your colleagues, friends and family whenever there is some things which are not aligned with your work, that has to be discussed or maybe communicate to the colleagues or even sometimes to the supervisors. The stretch for success. It is again a very important strategy, where the stretching for success keeps you on your toes. It makes make an effort with a hope to achieve your goals. Efforts and desire to overcome the obstacle are essential to tide over ROSS. Overcoming obsolete. That is, update your knowledge. Updating is very important. Upgrading yourself on the skills, on the knowledge base is very important. It also refers sometimes to as a continuous learning and upgrading yourself. So updating, because we are in a rapid technological changes, so there are a lot of changes are happening on our day-to-day life. So we need to be update ourselves on a day-to-day basis. Or maybe whatever new technology or whatever new challenges are coming, how to really deal with that. That also keeps you update and make you more confident at the workplace. There are certain safety valves which happens to be, so safety valves are known to be as that there are some safety norms. Firstly, it enables to escape the direct pressure of work stress. And safety valves help to one's instinctive stress response mobilizes one to single escape strategy. Maybe it happens to be a vigorous physical fight at workplace. The second function of the stress safety valve is to encounter and act as biochemical and psychological changes that occur when mobilized and deal with stress. One may or may not aware, or maybe they build out of it. Then changing gears. Changing gears involves a shifting from work to something else. Whenever the stress happens, it is said to be that change your gear or maybe move out of that. This feeling or this movement happens to be the psychologists call such pursuits as intrinsic motivators. So whenever there is a shift, there is a, for example, a work stress from some particular work, change your gear and try to do the activity which capture your own interest, which you are feeling, the feeling of better whenever work doing, which you feel it in a a very positive manner. So here the changing gear not only removes one's attention but also a distraction towards the pressure of work. So it helps to drain off or to really strategize, give a time or a space to strategize further to reduce the stress. So there are certain suggested safety valves are also cut back on excessive hours. For many people, burnout and overtime go hand in hand. The more they work, more they do the overtime, and more hours you work, and more likely you have have burnout. Exercise, because burnout always comes from exercise, mental and emotional stress. Physical exercise offers one of the best safety valves, because that release your hormones which leads to the stress hormones. Pamper yourself is very important strategy and very well suggested by the well-being professionals. Most of us even sometimes don't know how to pamper ourselves. So when we are experiencing the life crisis, we send the flowers to a friend to a hospital and walk and talk to them, or maybe some special attention we give it to others. Why not to ourselves? Pampering yourself can also have the same effect. tapping your back again, or maybe going out for at your favorite food point, or maybe shopping for yourself is also a kind of pampering yourself sometimes, which release the stress hormones. So along with that, getting involved, a boring job can lead to burnout easily. So get involved with those things which you really along with your work, which you really wanted to work. Warm up slowly. One can often get control of tense pressure work day by day, and it can be changed the way it begins. So start your day, or maybe warm up before you start your day. So there is another, that is practice relaxation technique. That can be meditation or yoga, or one can, and that process of learning that actually switch off the stress response. So there are a lot of safety valves which we have discussed, and it also leads to the employee empowerment, where the empowerment is a process of enabling and authorizing an individual to think and behave, act in a particular, or decision making in an autonomous way. So empowerment is the ongoing process of providing the tools, infrastructure, training, resources, encouragement and motivation your workers need to perform at an optimum level. There is a hidden potential among employees which can be revealed through empowerment. There are certain theoretical approaches to empowerment: is social structure perspective, psychological approach, and critical perspective. Social structural perspective is redesigning of advancing organizational policies, practices and structures, whereas psychological approach refers to when it develops a competence and self-determination among the employees, whereas the critical perspective is empowering and arguing that empowerment leads to less precise control over employees. So emplowee empowerment is described to be more towards as commitment, leadership and facilitation. So overall the management role revolves around 3 dimensions, whereas the employee empowerment, where the manager's role in empowerment, or the supervisor or a leader role in empowerment, consists of exhibiting a supporter's attitude, being a role model, being a mentor, being a trainer, being a facilitator, and practicing management by walking and taking quick action in recommendation and recognizing the accomplishment of their workforce or the employees. It can be through the brainstorming. Employees are seen to be as motivated and share their views and ideas. All these ideas can be recorded and take it as a suggestion list, and the process can be repeated on a group narrow, because that gives a feeling of the own. Quality circle is a group of employees who assembles and regularly make quick group decisions regarding improvements of the organization. The main difference between quality circle and brainstorming sessions is that quality circle members are volunteers and who summon themselves and conduct their own meetings. The quality circle assembles regularly before and during or after a shift to discuss their work, and they predict the problem, they propose the workplace improvement, the goals, and make the plans as per the within the volunteers or within the experts, because the identification of the problem is done on their own. So it is very common at the workplace at a manufacturing concerns. Walking and talking, that is MWA, that is management by walking around. This is a very simple technique and very efficient technique, where it is simply walking around the workplace and talking with employees, and can be effective way to solicit the input. To get the best input and the real time input is through the MBWA, which is effective way of prompting employees and asking the right questions, or maybe giving them the open-ended questions to get the suggestions, or maybe getting the feedback from at the workplace. There are certain things which the leaders can build an environment and employ people, that is, give power to those who are demonstrated the capacity to handle the responsibility. So authority and responsibility has to be aligned. Create a favorable environment in which people are encouraged to grow their skills. Don't second guess others' decisions and ideas unless it is necessary. This only undermines their confidence and keeps them from sharing future ideas with you. Give people discretion and autonomy over their task and resources. So there is employee when the employees are empowered. So it increases the productivity and morale of an employees. Empowering employees make decision on their own and increase the productivity. When employees don't have to wait for approval from a managers or the supervisors, so the workflow doesn't slow down. They take the decision on their own issues, they keep on moving and give the best of their efforts. They also feel confident, they feel valued, and they also acted upon as per they are likely to be with the views and ideas. The quality definitely enhance of the empowered employee, because with the tools, because they are provided with tools and guidelines through proper training, they are learned and independent decision makers. They are encouraged to take the quality work or to give the best of their capabilities. Then it is seen that empowered employees are better customer service. Simon Sneak, a blogger who writes, empowered employee says that empowered employee provide exceptional service, then he has experienced this firsthand. So it is always see that the empowered employees gives a better customer service at the workplace. Embracing they adapt the change. The empowered employees are always free to take the challenges and changes which is happening around, and because we are in a very changing environment, there are a lot of disruptions is happening at an organization level, at an economy level. So the organization which feel very uncomfortable about questioning their status quo will most probably stagnate, since their organization may swiftly get past them. So they embrace the change, and they take the change as a challenge due to any disruption happens. Then another advantage of being an empowered employees is they collaborate. They collaborate, and they within the organization they gain a lot of self-confidence as well as the abilities and influence the organization. They feel comfortable in exchanging their new ideas or maybe any innovative ideas which come. They collaborate with their colleagues in an honest and broad manner when it comes to the productivity of an organization. Communication is boosted among empowered employee, because they are self-confident. They have the employees are free to to overcome the managers, and should keep the employees informed regarding environment and the jobs. So to overcome that, managers plays a very important role by informing and about the roles, about the jobs, about the environment. Clients will be much happier, because as I said, it is the best customer service is given by the empowered employees. They themselves are more than satisfied, and they are well happy with their job. They are well informed in their job. So that is what they pass it to their customers or the clients. But there are certain cons also, disadvantage. There is additional cost of training, because empowering employees needs an education, and there are certain additional cost which is incurred because of that. Arrogance comes sometimes with the confidence level of an empowered employee. The highly increased and it provided with sufficient power. Abusing power also, sometimes it is seen when an empowered employee are given power, they make the decision, and sometimes they misuse that decision, and it comes to abuse of their power, or they misuse their power because for their personal gain. Interpersonal relations may complicate because of the empowering employees, because of the power they got and make decisions, and being rooted to the complexity that could lead to the conflicts and misunderstanding at the workplace. Poor knowledge and understanding also happens to be when there is lack of proper knowledge and taking a decision, that happens to be cause more interrelational conflicts. Risk of security and confidentiality happens when the employees are empowered by sharing information, but there is always a risk, maybe if they are not supposed to be shared with others. So overall, we have understand the concept of stress and impact it has on organization. We also learned about the types of stress, eustress and distress, reasons of stress to occur in organization. We learned about the stress safety walls, also about the organization, how the individuals can deal with the stress, understanding of employee empowerment, also the management's role in employee empowerment. There are certain pros and cons of employee empowerment. So that's all for today. Thank you so much. Namaste.